Hey everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for the top 5 best films of 2022. I had a little trouble with this one. I knew my top 3, kind of. I was trying so hard to figure, there were so many really good, but not quite perfect films this year. I go by a 5-star rating system. I only really had 2 films this year that I gave 5 out of 5. And that's not because the rest of them were bad, they just all had some little bits that didn't necessarily make them flawless. And I had a bunch that I honestly felt like doing pairs for, or taking off the list entirely, because if you'd shown me this list before, at the start of the year, I would have looked at it and been like, okay, why that one? That's odd. And what the heck is this one? I've never heard of that. And then, even if you explained what that last one was to me, I'd be like, really? Oh, okay, sure. So yeah, I had a little trouble coming up with the top 5 for this. And I honestly could consider doing pairs for the 5th and 4th, but I didn't really want to do that this time. I wanted to really focus on the films that were almost perfect, if not flat out perfect. So that's what I did this time. So we'll be looking at the top 5 best films of 2022. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Ah, we have found him, our star. Everyone shall love you and call your name Pinocchio. Pinocchio!
Yeah, this was one that I had nearly wanted to split. Because there was 2 stop-motion films that I saw this year, which is interesting because it's like stop-motion doesn't done very often, and we had like 5 this year, and I only got to see like 2 of them. But both of them were just like absolutely stellar, and I kept flip-flopping on both of them, and I'm not going to give it to both of them. I am going to pick one, and I'm sticking with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. But the other one was Wendell and Wild, and I will get into that when I get to the honorable mentions. But with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, not only is this the best stop-motion animation film I've seen this year, not only is this easily the best Pinocchio film that came out this year, this might be the best Pinocchio story ever. I like this way more than the animated Walt Disney film. I definitely like it a lot more than the live-action Disney film that came out this year. But this, to me, really encapsulates what makes the Pinocchio character interesting.
People are sometimes afraid of things they don't know.
I don't understand.
The beauty of the animation and the way the story is told and the creature design and the crafting and all of that stuff. I love the fact that Pinocchio is extremely made of wood, and you see why he would be a little bit terrifying in the beginning, because he's just a kid with no idea of right and wrong and no idea of what the consequences are. So he's just throwing axes at people and crashing through walls and pushing people out of the way and setting himself on fire, and he does not know or care. And it's it becomes a bit of a horror film. I like the resetting of it into Italy during the World War II Germany uprise. I like all of the way it's designed, the creature design, the world design. Everything about Pinocchio in this is stellar. He's so cute and charming and amazing.
Hey, where are you going?
You tell him I love him. And I won't be a burden anymore.
And even though it's a musical, and maybe some of the musical numbers don't need to be there, I still found them so sweet and so charming and so interesting. And it's so nice to see a Pinocchio where Pinocchio improves, but everyone around him changes. His father becomes a better person. Jiminy Cricket, who isn't called Jiminy Cricket, but the cricket becomes a better cricket. The monkey that he befriends becomes a better being because of knowing Pinocchio.
The boy loves you for who you are.
And I truly find this to be easily one of Guillermo del Toro's best works ever. It is up there with Pan's Labyrinth for being both beautiful and fairy tale and haunting and real.
the wooden boy with the borrowed soul. While you may have eternal life, your loved ones, they do not. You never know how long you have with someone until they're gone.
And I convinced my mom to watch this, of course. And she was like, I liked it, but I don't like the fact that he knew certain things when he was first created, but not other things. That always bugs her. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's a decent nitpick. I can see that as a problem. And didn't bother me, like, because the rest of the film is just so charming and interesting that I love it and I forgave it. But it's so heartwarming and interesting and creative and beautifully done and beautifully animated. Like, if you watch this it's on Netflix. I recommend watching it. I recommend watching the making of documentary that comes with it. Just so much love and so much heart and so much energy put into every single frame of this film. Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, this one and Avatar were fighting for this spot. It was so hard to pick between them, but it's the thing of, like, Avatar has a couple real sticking points that make it hard for me to put it up there, whereas Top Gun is a nearly flawless film, and it's so well shot and so well put together that I can forgive any of its real negatives.
Everyone here is the best there is. Who the hell are they going to get to teach us?
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. Just want to manage expectations.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators.
The way it's shot, the way the actors perform the parts, the fact that you have real actors in real planes experiencing these real sensations, and we get to see that all on camera.
One.
Tom Cruise insisted on this stuff, and it makes the film phenomenal.
Someone's not coming back from this.
Those are your pilots. Anything happens to them, you'll never forgive yourself.
Gorgeous and just so much fun. It's such a good little action film. It's just amazing. Like, I made certain I watched this at least, if not in IMAX, in an XD high definition theater. And I was blown away from it every second of it. The story is great.
My dad believed in you. I'm not gonna make the same mistake.
Like, I'm not even that big a fan of the original Top Gun. I think the Top Gun is fine. Like, I saw it late in life. Like, I only saw it like 2 or 3 years ago for the first time. And it's a good film. This is an amazing film. Like, this will stand the test of time. This will be one of those action films that's remembered well past its years. And they do such a good job of setting it up and getting your brain around it. And you can feel how dangerous it is and how tricky it is, but you also feel the elation when they can do it and when they reach the point that they are capable enough to do said impossible maneuvers. It is just like a super stellar action film from start to finish, and legitimately the best sequel made X amount of years after that I've ever seen. I can't tell you any film that was sequeled more than 10 years after that is as good as Top Gun Maverick, because that one is just stellar. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I was so happy to see this in theaters. Like, I knew this was going to be interesting, and I knew I had to see it based off those previews and those trailers. Like, it looked so weird and so interesting and so dynamic.
What's happening?
It's sad that it was so good that it made Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness look very, very poor in comparison, considering we had, like, the best multiverse film maybe of all time. Like, this is just stunning from beginning to end.
Evelyn, I'm not your husband. I'm another version of I'm from another universe. I'm here because we need your help.
Very busy today. No time to help you.
This film, which was probably on a much lower budget, was so much more interesting and so creative and so well done. It is a beautiful film with such good message and story and characters and love and heart and creativity in it. There are points in it where you're just like a little bit like, what? Why? What are we doing with these? But they all have a point and a purpose. Like, you go to the world where they all have hot dogs for fingers, but they also have extremely strong feet, so they can use that for that. You have a world that has a Ratatouille ripoff, but even that comes into play in some way, shape, or form.
There's a great evil spreading throughout the many verses. And you may be our only chance of stopping it.
It's so amazing and so stellar with that. I think my one real nitpick with the film is some of the incredibly odd choices that they make. Specifically, the one that bothers me the most, which is probably the fact that the main threat, the main force that they're fighting out against, is referred to as the Everything Bagel. It's just this black hole that can consume anything and everything that looks at it long enough. And it's like, did you have to call it the Everything Bagel? You couldn't come up with something better title-wise? And it's like, there's certain little things that keep it from being like a perfect 5 out of 5 for me, but it's got so much good about it, so much interesting about it. It's still, like, overall just absolutely gorgeous, amazing, beautiful film. Worth a look, because it's just so well done. Like, it stars Michelle Yeoh, easily her best performance of all, and I really like the messages of the film, like, you know, finding the beauty in the little things, and that even the, you know, the life that you think is uninteresting is important.
Of all the places I could be, I just want to share with you.
And has meaning and has reasons to exist. Like, it's so beautiful and well done. Spring Awakening, Those You've Known. Yeah, this is a documentary. And I am legitimately surprised that it's this high. And that I couldn't put it lower. Like, and this is the one that I was like, if you told me this was on my list, I'd have been like, seriously? Why is a documentary on my top 5 list? Because I'm not the biggest documentary person there is. I rewatched it this morning. Because I'm like, okay, let me rewatch it. Let me see if my opinion changes. Because this is one of the 2 films that got a 5 out of 5 for me. And I'm like, okay, let's rewatch it. Let's take a look. Let's go through this. And I'm like, rewatching, I'm going, you know, I could probably move it down the list. It could, you know, maybe just put it in the honorable mentions instead. And while I'm thinking that and watching the film, I just have this giant smile on my face the whole time. And I could feel, like, tears starting to creak out the side because I was just being so heart-warmed and emotionally moved by the stories being told.
Spring Awakening was so hard to describe. 1891 Germany, rock music, there's children in it.
The gay scene, abortion, the sex, the suicide. There was never anything like this that's ever happened on stage.
Basically, they got together for the 15th anniversary and they put on a special benefit concert.
Getting back together after 15 years is going to be insane.
And for the documentary, you see them getting interviewed about it, them prepping for the special concert, them performing special concert, but you're also seeing, you know, the original cast and the original show and the actual filmed versions of them doing those original parts. And it is legitimately the best balanced documentary I've seen.
This can't be it.
Like, because here's the thing, I like documentaries. I don't love documentaries. There's not too many that I would give a 5 out of 5 star rating. There's a couple, but like, I gave it to Blackfish and I gave it to like Won't You Be My Neighbor? But there's not too many others that I would really like. I enjoyed every single second of that. This I did. I enjoyed every single second of it. It was so honest. It had so much heart, so much thought, so much feeling behind it.
The controversial nature meant that we never thought about Broadway.
But it touched a nerve.
We became rock stars.
And I say that as someone who has very little connection to the play, especially the musical. Like, I've never seen the musical. I did watch it now after watching the documentary. I went and found it and I watched it on YouTube. But like, I never watched the musical. I didn't know the songs. I didn't know much of any. I knew a bit about the story because when I went to college, I worked on the play of the original play, like, because we did the original Spring Awakening without the music, where it's a lot darker and it's a lot more gritty, because like in the musical they have the two young leads have sex and it's a mutual beautiful thing. In the play he flat out rapes her. It's not got any of the lightheartedness that the musical brings from to that moment. I didn't actually perform in the play, sadly. I worked in the costuming. I basically helped one of the adults switch from her regular costume into her school uniform, and I helped her with her wig, and that's about all I did. I didn't see the show, I just got to hear the show every night type of thing. And it's a show that I know from what experience, even not having been on it, but just seeing people and seeing what it is an emotionally draining, heartbreaking show. Like, it just takes everything out of you because it is such a heavy subject matter. And that it's like, I know more than a few actors who were doing that show who would come out in the back and just sob uncontrollably because they had to deal with so much high emotions from that. And you get to see that in this documentary, because this is a play and a musical and a story that, while being about kids in Germany in the 1800s, is timeless kind of storytelling, because it's about a bunch of kids that are being repressed and not told information and not allowed to be themselves and not allowed to understand themselves, and how horrible that is to be as a kid and to not know these things and to not have anyone to help you or to support you or to be a part of that. And it is, and to be in to that, we still have these problems. We still have parents refusing to tell their kids where babies come from, or that we still have this problem of parents molesting their children, and all these super dark themes is heartbreaking. Yeah, I could not take it out of the top 5 because it just affected me personally so emotionally and so strongly. Like you got to know all of these people so well and know so much about them. Like, just the stories that they told, because these were all 14, 15, 16-year-olds working together every day in this high emotional state, and they just fused together and became a real, true family.
We, of course, loved our show and loved playing our characters, but the real fun we had was off stage together.
And grew connected, and it's just like, you got so much honesty from this. Like, Leah Michaels is famous for doing the show, and she's talking about her and the main guy and how she was falling in love with him, and how she was just like, asked him one of the nights, like, why won't you love me? Why can't you just love me? And she realized in that moment the thing that he couldn't say, the thing that he wasn't brave enough to say at that time, that he was gay, and that's why he couldn't love her back. And instead of being heartbroken and distraught about that, she accepted it and became his best friend, and they gained a connection that they still have to this day, type of thing, and it's heartwarming. And then, of course, she tells a story about how she let him see a very, very private part of herself, and she was not shy about it in any way in the interview, and they told him about it, and he's like, I'm so glad she told you that story. Wow, okay, yeah, No, it was interesting. Like,
through the cast and through the opportunity of getting to play this character, I had grown this strength. And it changed my life.
Like, it's so honest and so impactful, and you see how important these parts are to these actors and to these characters. Honestly, this for me is one of my favorite musical documentaries I've ever seen. And I've seen a bunch, but this one just is so well balanced and so interesting and so perfect for me that I fell in love with everything about it. And I added like 5 of the songs onto my phone because I fell in love with them from this documentary.
Oh God, what a bitch.
I don't expect this to be on anyone else's top 5s. I don't even think this will be on anybody else's honorable mentions, if you even saw it. This is one that only really speaks to me, and that is part of why I considered putting it lower or not on the list at all. But I have to be honest, I have to be truthful, if to no one else than to myself. And for me, this is the film that moved me the most. It's the film that made me feel something the most. It's the film that brought me the most amount of joy and lightheartedness and happiness of almost the whole year. Like, watching it again, I honestly, when I restarted it this morning, I was expecting to be doing other things the entire time it was playing, and I just zoned out. And I sat and I watched the whole thing, and I smiled the whole time. It was so much fun. Really worth a look if you have any interest in music theater at all. Just give it a look. It's really good. I recommend it. Moving on to some honorable mentions. Well, let's start with one of the ones I did talk about, Avatar: The Way of Water. Really stunning film. Glad we got it after 13 years. Beautifully animated. Like, once they get to, it's a little slow in the beginning, but once they get to the water village, they're swimming and you see all those underwater shots, just perfection. Just absolutely gorgeous. Like, there is nothing more fulfilling than just watching them swim around in that deep water with the whales and all that. It's just, it's heartbreaking and heart-moving and gorgeous. Absolutely amazing. And then you get to the final fight sequence, and it's still really interesting and really fun. There are moments with it, though, where the animation dips in quality. Like, a lot of it, especially under the water stuff, is like photorealistic. And then you get some spots where it's a little PS4-y, and then you get a couple where it's very PS2. And it's like, ooh. I don't remember that being as big a problem with the original, but I haven't seen the original in theaters in a long time, so it's entirely possible I'd have a different reaction seeing it on the big screen like that. The plot is a bit better than the first, but not much. It still has some of the same flaws that the original had. But I do think this is a worthy follow-up, and I am very much looking forward to the next one. Hopefully it only takes 2 or 3 years and not 5 or 10. Wendell and Wild, which I almost put in the list as well. Super stunning and amazing with its storytelling and its creativity. Like, it takes a story that seems like you know everything that's going to happen. That seems very one note. It's like, troubled teen goes back to hometown and is going to a private boarding school where she runs into bullies and befriends a demon who she brings to the real world to cause trouble. Like, you expect it to follow those beats, and it does to an extent, but they never work the way you expect them to. Like, you meet the bullies, and they're not bullies. They're 3 super nice kids who just want to befriend her and give her a cute nickname and just want her to be part of their group. And she just doesn't want anything to do with it, but they are so wanting her to be part of their friendship. And like, the demons are not what you expect them to be, and none of the characters expect to be. Like, watching this, it made me think a lot of some of the stop-motion ones that I wanted to like, and I just couldn't. Like, it really made me think of Paranorman and Frankenweenie. Like, the things that I wanted those films to be, they never managed to succeed, whereas Wendell and Wild was all of those pushed forward. Like, it hit all of the right notes for those. and I was just so happy to see it and see its animation, and it's really worth a look. I do recommend it if you haven't seen it. Legit, I might like it more than I liked Pinocchio. I'm not sure. Like, I had to put Pinocchio up a little bit, but I could honestly, I might change my mind if I rewatch it. I'm not sure. I recommend The Northman, which I saw on a lot of people's top left list, and it's like, I've really enjoyed it, but I don't know if I'd put it as my favorite. It's got a really good revenge plot story set in like medieval Scotland, and it's got some good elements, and I really like when you find out who the mother is and why she is the way she is and what happened. That is just so heartrending and so about it. It just works so well. It has this really good otherworld atmosphere while also being somewhat grounded. Another documentary I'd actually recommend is Lucy and Desi, which is about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. It's about like how they met and how they became a couple and how they started I Love Lucy and the whole Lucy Studios and all that stuff. And it's a really good look into them and has really good interviews and breakdown and real conversations with those actors and those performers, and it's just so well done and so interesting. Like, I skipped out watching Meet the Ricardos because this one was so much more interesting. I was like, I don't need to watch Meet the Ricardos because this just summed it up so much better than I think that film could. Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis with Austin Butler, just literally embodying Elvis. Just his performance in this is absolutely stellar from beginning to end. Film is sadly let down by a lackluster performance from Tom Hanks, which isn't his fault. It's weird that they made the choices they made with that, considering nothing about the character, the real person, is that character. I want to recommend 13 Lives, which is this really good drama based off a real event where basically 13 Indonesian soccer players, these young kids, went into a cave system during a rainy season and they got flooded in. China government hires these two professional cave divers to dive in and find the bodies of these kids, and they managed to do so, but the kids are alive and have survived. And then it becomes a matter of, okay, we need to get the kids out, and it's like that we can't get the kids out. There's literally no possible way to do that. And eventually they come up with this incredibly dangerous, incredibly harebrained scheme that you don't like. There's a good chance it will kill them just as likely as leaving them in the cave will. And it is extremely dramatic and heartfelt and really well shot and well put together, and does a really good job with the drama. And I actually watched the documentary based off the real event that came out the year before, which was called The Rescue. And kind of the opposite of the Lucy and Desi thing, where it's like I actually liked the dramatization of it more than I liked the documentary. I think the documentary is solid. I think the dramatization adds a lot more to the characters and the heart. Like everything that happens in it is beat for beat the exact same things that happened in reality. It doesn't embellish anything. It just gives you the real situation and the real characters and the real people type of thing. I want to shout out Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Like, I did not think this film would be good. Like, I was very about the whole thing. Like, it was very much trying to be Roger Rabbit, and I'm just like, from the preview, and I'm just like, oh great, just what we need, another Roger Rabbit failed clone. But this one is the closest I've seen to that since the original. Like, this is actually stellar and really funny and really interesting. Like, I laughed at multiple Seth Rogen jokes. I hate Seth Rogen. I don't think he's funny in any way, and he made me laugh a bunch of times in this. And it's really creative and really interesting, and it's so nice to see all of these weird little side characters that you don't expect to see. Like, everyone brings up Ugly Sonic in this, and Ugly Sonic is actually really good and really important to the story. But then you also get, like, My Little Pony and He-Man and Skeletor and the dad from South Park. It's just, like, how did you get all of these characters and why? Like, it's so well done. The only real kind of little negative that I've seen and that I kind of agree with is that, no, Dale is done in 3D animation, and Chip is supposed to be done in hand-drawn animation. but they skirted the difference and they did Chip in a 2D animation style on a 3D surface. Looks off in some points. Still, like, honestly, really interesting, really good. If you can get over that fact, it's actually a blast to watch. Prey, which is the prequel sequel to Predator. Really, really good Predator film. Like, legitimately best Predator film since the original, and that's from someone who likes all of the Predator films. Like, this one blows all of the others out of the water. And it is so nice to see it because it's just stripping Predator back and making it just dealing with a creature and a being that is far more technologically advanced with you, and then you have a flint pistol and a tomahawk, and you have to try to figure out how to beat this thing. And it's like, it's a film that I've been wanting and waiting for since Predator 2. Like, it set that up with that as being a possibility, and I've wanted that film ever since. And this does a great job with it. Great cast, good actors. The lead from this, I only know her from Roswell, New Mexico. She plays the younger sister of Liz Arteco, and she's way better in Prey than she is in Roswell. She's fine in Roswell, but it's not as great. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, with Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage as only Nicolas Cage can play him, and just absolutely stellar. One of the best romances of the year. Not the best, but pretty close. Great casting, great characters, just really good breaking down the meta, and it's really a fun thing to see and to look at if you are a fan of Nick Cage, which I am. It's like, I like the fact they spend the time to like praise some of Nick Cage's work, and they bring up guarding Tess at a point, and I'm like, really? Guarding Tess? Like, even as a Nick Cage, I'm like, that's one of his more films. Like, like, it's not bad, it's just not great either. But it was nice to see it get some love and get a little bit of appreciation. Rosaline. This was a Hulu. I saw this on Hulu. It's basically like, it was Romeo and Juliet, but told from the perspective of Rosaline, who is the girl that Romeo was dating before he met Juliet. And it's really interesting, decently put together little film. It's not amazing, but it's just, I really like it. I really like the use of language. I really like the fact that they acknowledged, like, they had Romeo doing the real Shakespearean talking, and Rosalind just looks at him and is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I thought it sounded pretty, and I wanted to impress you." And it's like, "Oh, yeah, well, keep going." And it was an interesting take on the characters and the story, and it was a really nice, different arc from it. It's definitely not very time period accurate, because it's a lot of modern language and stuff, but it's just fun. It's a really good fun film. I recommend that. The Batman this year. Legit top 5 Batman films ever made. Like, honestly, absolutely amazing. My only real negative is it's a smidge too long. At 3 hours, it's a bit of a slog, but it's beautifully shot, beautifully made. The lead is great as Batman. We got a great Batman, a great Riddler. I would love to see a little bit more of a Bruce Wayne in the next one, but stellar. Like, Colin Farrell disappears under all that makeup as the Penguin. Excellent action. It has one of my favorite images from any Batman film or action film in years, which is Batman with the torch leading the people out of the stadium into safety. Like, that image is just burned into my brain. Like, it's a kind of an homage to the thing that he did in The Dark Knight Returns, where he led the citizens of Gotham during the blackout to keep them in line to get from going crazy. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Like, this was a weird year for Marvel. Like, most of the Marvel stuff was not extremely great this year. Like, we had 2 really good Marvel things this year. One was Werewolf by Night, and the other was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And, like, of the 2, Wakanda Forever was way better than Werewolf by Night. But, like, Wakanda Forever just had such a good ideas and characters and stories. And I liked this actually way more than I liked Black Panther 1. And just to see these characters' growth and them changing, and them dealing with the loss and who they are and figuring things out. And they had a really good way of bringing back Killmonger and all that stuff to bring him into the story in some way. And it was just extremely well done, and it was really nice to see that tribute to both T'Challa, but also to Chadwick Boseman. We respected both the character and the actor, who sadly was taken from us too soon. But he leaves a legacy that this film does its best to live up to, and I think not only do they succeed, they surpass. We had Glass Onion, The Knives Out 2, which was stellar, great cast, great excellent performances and stuff. It was just, like, it had a couple little weird points at it for me, but overall I had a lot of fun with it, and I thought it was really interesting. It was just weird that these people were the friends for more than anything, and I know why they were friends, but it's still, like, wouldn't you just drop some of these people as hot lead the second you got money? We had Enola Holmes 2, another good mystery one. It took all the things that I didn't like about Enola Holmes 1 and cut them out, and now it's just, like, the actual good part of the story. Good mystery, good characters, good acting, good performances. I also got to call out Weird, an Al Yankovic story, which is, like, I have one little thing that I don't like about this film, and that's the fact that he's made this joke before. Which is, the joke is that I take events from my life and then I amplify them up to like 100 to make it seem even more big and grandiose and ridiculous. And that's good. That's funny. The first time when you did it in the documentary a few years ago. And then you did it again when you did the Funny or Die fake version of this story, which inspired the making of the actual version of this story. That said, it's still a really good, really funny, really over-the-top, ridiculous film, and Daniel Radcliffe plays Weird Al, and he is freaking phenomenal in it. It's just absolutely brilliant from beginning to end. Like, it definitely has dips, but it's just so much fun, and I think about that film every few days. Like, it's just, like, puts a big smile on my face. RRR. Yeah, this is the one where it's like, if you told me, I've been like, what in the hell is RRR? Yeah, so those of you that know are not surprised that this is my number one. Those of you that don't know, RRR is an Indian film. Not technically Bollywood, but a lot of people call it a Bollywood film. I don't know enough about the Indian film thing to be really classified or this, that, and the other. But it is Rise, Revolt, Roar, and that is the title of it. It also stands for the three leads in it, but we'll get to that in a second. So RRR is an action-adventure Indian film, which is, without a doubt, the best action film in 20 years. If not the best action film of all time. I say that without any hesitation. It is one of, if not the best action films of ever made, and I can see it in the running for number one. It is a historical fantasy about these two Indian revolutionaries who actually existed but never met each other, and this is like how they became friends and worked together to overthrow the evil English and kick them out of India. And every single minute of this film is freaking stellar. It is a 3-hour film, and those 3 hours blow by so fast, and you're having so much fun through all of it. Like, you can take even just little pieces of this film, and all of it is stellar. You have the opening part where you have one of the main characters jump into this crowd of like 1,000 people and fights them all off single-handedly.
शिकारी चाहिए एक आदमी है सर.
You have the other one. When you introduce him, he's fighting the tiger barehanded. Then you got the dance music number, which is just one of the best dance music numbers ever put to film. Like, you have the animal fighting with all of the animals against the British. Have them rescuing each other and fighting and rescuing the child from the burning water. It is just stellar film from start to finish. There is not a single slow point, not a single flaw. It is the expert craft, and it's amazing because it's just beautifully done and beautifully made, and it's not a film that we could make here in America at all. But with RRR, it's like, this is a masterpiece made by 3 people at the top of their games. Like, it's called Rise, Roar, Revolt, but it's also the initials of the 3 people in it. Both of the 2 leads and the director, they are 3 of the top celebrities, top performers in India, and this is their first time doing a film together, and they make arguably the best film of all time. Like, one of the best films of all time. Like, legit, I watched someone else's top 10 films of the year. They didn't mention RRR at all, and I got pissed. I'm like, how could you not even include it in honorable mentions? Like, and if it was a single person that just hadn't seen it, I could see that, but that was like a big company one, so there was like 5 people that compiled a list together to make their top 10. And I'm like, none of you fought for RRR? Really? You are a movie company. You review movies. You talk about films that no one has ever seen. You should have seen RRR. Like, and the fact that you didn't mention it pisses me off. Because it is freaking stellar. Yes, it's a Bollywood film. Yes, it's not in English. And I say this as someone who usually only watches these things if you can find them dubbed. Watch it regardless. Like, if you can't, like, you don't need this dub. This is so amazing that you will get something out of it no matter what. Like, I was stunned from every second of this film. Like, just beautifully done. Great characters, great storytelling, great romance, great action, great bromance, one of the best male combos of any film of all time. Easily to me, the best historical fantasy film ever made. Worth it. Go see it. It's on Netflix. It's 3 hours that you will not regret a single minute of. And it makes me really want to get into the Bollywood and that stuff and those films, because I don't know much about that culture and that filmmaking style. I've watched 1 or 2 from that culture and that nature, but I've not seen any that really blew me away. And this is one, like, I have a couple saved on my to-watch list, but I haven't gotten around to them because they're all 3 hours long, and, you know, no dubbing, so I'm, like, a little slower and hesitant to do that because I can't give it the focus it necessarily needs. And I really want to give these films their due focus, because legitimately this film was just the highlight of my year. I'm so glad, because I would not have found this on my own. I found it because other channels did like their top 5 best films of the year so far in June and July, and like 2 or 3 of them had RRR as like 1 or 2, and I'm like, okay, I can look. And it was on Netflix, and I watched it, and I'm like, nope, immediately number 1, and nothing even came close to beating it out. Not even Spring Awakening. Like, just absolute perfection from start to finish. Great film. But that's just my opinion. What do you all think? Do you like these films? Do you hate these films? Is there a film I didn't talk about that you'd like to hear my thoughts about? Are you someone who knows a little bit more about the Indian culture and the films and have some recommendations for a first-timer like me? Because I would greatly love some suggestions. There's a lot of films from India. There's more than I care to even try and think about, but I would love good places to start. Give me some ideas. Happy watching, happy reading. I will see you all next time. Bye!